Good afternoon, Dublin. It's a pleasure to be here, because I was supposed to be here last time, but I couldn't. So I'm doubly happy to be here today. So what am I going to be talking about? Some great talks already, but what I want to talk about is the whole testing thing, and really the kind of serious mistakes that people are making with testing. Some kind of elementary things that means that some of these test results you're seeing are lies or illusions, or you're misinterpreting them. So I don't want you to bet your business strategy on doing really dumb testing. I'm going to show you some of the mistakes that I've made. Not all of them, but certainly the ones that really hit all the cross-device work that my clients are doing. So let me get started. So I've been doing this for a while. If you're boring self-promotion bit, get in touch if you need any help with your testing program. And these are some of the companies I've been working for. But what's the major problem here? What's the major problem with A/B testing? So it came out of nowhere, and we've had this massive democratization. Google offers a free tool. Optimize, they make a tool now that millions of people use. And Visual Website Optimizer has been going for years. There's no shortage of great testing tools out there that you can use. So what's the problem with that? Well, you know, no one ever thought when YouTube launched, I never heard anyone saying, oh, it'll be fantastic, this YouTube thing. Oh, people will only ever upload high-quality content onto there. No, they didn't say that. So what have they got? 26.6 million funny cat videos. Okay, seriously, that many. Okay, even better than that, this is the surprising one, 28.4 million video walkthroughs. People taking videos of themselves playing a video game? What? 6.9 million Gangnam-style videos. If I watched them back to back, I would die before the playlist finished. Okay, there's a lot of Gangnam videos, yes. But the problem with A/B testing here is that whilst we've massively democratized access to this technology like YouTube, we've also massively scaled the amount of bullshit and really bad stuff, right? So I had to get a Star Wars joke in here, right? It's like we handed out lightsabers to everyone and said, there you go, there's your lightsaber, have fun, right? This is what your local accident and emergency department would look like, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I chopped his arm off, you know, can you fix it? But this is the problem, you're doing this to your business if you do bad A/B testing. And so today's about giving you some serious lessons, some big problems that you can actually avoid here. And these are all the things I'm going to cover today, and there's a summary at the end that tells you what you're going to do about each of them, or what I hope you're going to do about each of them. So, first one is, people say to me, oh, it's great, we're moving to a responsive site. That means we can do loads of A/B testing and kind of tweak things, and it'll be great, and it will replay across all of these sites. But it doesn't really solve that problem. Responsive is just an attribute, right? Okay, I'm wearing a green and blue tie right now. It's an attribute, right? It does not convey me with mystical powers or make me a better analyst. It's just a thing. Having a responsive site doesn't mean that the user experience is good, and nor does it mean that it's a better way to do A/B testing. And here's the problem. Here's a perfect example. This is a Danish website, and they've got this. This is a really horrible way to do a form. I mean, it's really bad UX to actually put the field labels inside the form fields. But this layout of tabbed horizontal forms is really, really hard for people. I've seen it loads of times in user tests. It doesn't convert very well. But that's not the problem here. This is the desktop and tablet view. But when it breaks onto mobile, it ends up looking like this, right? So if I start chopping the field names around here or changing the style of this, it's not one design I'm playing with. These guys have actually implemented two different ways of breaking the design that are very different experiences. So if I am going to split test this stuff, I really need to be targeting specific device classes. So if I'm going to run an A/B test, it's going to be hard for me to come up with an A/B test that spans both of these setups. I'd have to target one of them specifically. So be very careful about this. You've got to work out, if you're going to run an A/B test, who is the A/B test going to be seen by? How does it change the experience that's already there? And what does the experience look like afterwards? It's not true to think that an A/B test that you design for a responsive site will look the same for everybody. It could have markedly different impacts. And the big problem is most people don't even bother to look. They look at the design printouts, but they never walk through the site or check it out or see what the A/B experiment is going to look like for consumers. Here's another example. Nice little kind of mobile form here, very long like a toilet roll. Yawn, yawn, I'm falling asleep. Huge copy on it. But yeah, there's the layout. But look what happens when these guys go to desktop. They end up with this horribly spanned out version of the site. Here's another one. Seen this loads of times. Oh, I know, you know, this is the search box on our mobile site, and it's kind of cool, and we put some totally useless text telling you to search for a keyword. Oh, that's really helpful of you. But what does it look like on desktop, right? It vanishes, right? People now can't see the search because they're looking for a box of about roughly that sort of size with a button next to it. Instead, now here they've got a navigation stroke come search bar. So this is a problem. When you're designing A/B tests, you need to be aware of how they're going to look at different breakpoints in order to be able to understand the impact that you're having on people's behavior. Here's another one. Can anyone tell me what these are? They're not burger icons, but they look darn similar, don't they? Okay, no one guessed these either, right? Well, that's what they are. Oh, you know, the Android hollow composition icon, right? Okay, but you couldn't guess these, okay? There's no contextual information. It might make sense inside Microsoft Word. You might have learnt some of these patterns, but certainly to start with, you can't, without additional information, deduce what these actually mean. That's one of the problems with icons. Icons are very, very hard to get right. And this is what Luke says. I'm quoting Luke here, right? This is one of the problems of the hamburger menu. I'm not the only person to have mentioned it today. People dump all this stuff in there. It's like the backwater is like, oh, we'll put all the navigation in there and go in the burger menu. But what happens if people don't understand what this actually is? You know, if you don't know that the hamburger is actually a menu. Well, there's an excellent study here. Me, Luke, and a guy called Pep Lacha all kind of clubbed together with another guy and decided to run a whole series of split tests on this. So it was like, well, seriously, if you guys think that changing the design of the burger icon would help. And the amazing thing that we found out was prominence, colour had an impact, of course, but adding the word menu made a huge amount of money for all the clients that we tested with. Okay, now in your target market, you might have a younger audience who are more familiar with this. You may have an older audience that has no freaking clue what the burger icon is, but you need to test this stuff out and you need to see whether it's working. For this company, they got another $200,000 in revenue every year just from a tiny simple change to the menu. You know, so please test this stuff out. Don't make assumptions that users are going to understand these things. You need to run a split test. Number 2, all our customers use iPhones, right? Oh, I can't really see any droids in this Google Analytics report. Well, there are a few, but they're quite small. People are making fundamental mistakes in assuming that they know. If I was to ask all of you guys what was in your mental model of what your customers actually use, you'd probably give me what sounded like reasonable answers, but they probably wouldn't line up with your analytics data. And that's because you're making an assumption. You're deciding that maybe because you've got an iPhone, everybody else has got one. Well, that's great, but your mobile phone is not your customer device mix. You know, so, and most people really undercount Android, right? How many models of iPhone are there? How many models of Android are there? That's going to affect your Google Analytics report. But it only takes 2 to 3 hours of work for a competent analyst to come up with a list saying, when you test your site, these are the tablets, the mobile devices, and the desktop browsers that you must check it with. These are the tools that your customers are using, therefore your device experience should be at the max in these. There shouldn't be any problems, but people don't do this. It's really dumb. Get your testing mix right, find out what your customers have got. Third thing is, we all build stuff like this. We expect the customers to go round the path that we've so carefully provided, right? And they go this way. Okay, what's all that about? Well, it's just we haven't designed the paths right. It's not that they're wrong. Here's a perfect example. This is a SaaS provider. And they were kind of just, we were doing some conversion optimization work and setting up some split tests, and they got this package page. And then this form, this has got a great fill-out rate, this form. It's not perfect, but it's still posting over 80% sign-ups. It's a free package, okay? There's a high level of motivation for people to use these tools. But then what happens? Please check your email. We've sent you an activation email. Great, okay? So we ran the analytics data and we figured out that over a third of people who got sent an activation email were not able to use the product. They didn't actually come back and sign into their account. We were like, what's going on here? You know, if 85% of people fill out this form, we'd kind of not expect to drop a third at the next step. They're itching to have a go here. All right, so what do we have a look at? Well, let's have a look at their activation email. What's this right at the top? A big sawed-off green button saying log in. Yeah, give me. I want to log in. You've sent it to me, so I want to log in. Can anyone notice the tiny recessive click to verify email address link here that takes up about 1% of the size of the whole email template? That's the problem. So what do? Right, they go and click on that. Oh, your account's not been verified. I just came from there. You buggers, it's horrible. You know, so we just give them that, you know, it's your fault. You're stupid. You didn't do the right thing. You didn't click. I did click on the link in the email. Right, so that's where the 33% are going. This is an air gap. They exist inside every product. But these guys had not walked this whole pathway. They didn't know this customer journey. They didn't look at the analytics, and they certainly didn't actually get a tablet or a mobile device out and try and do it. They hadn't been near their website in yonks. You know, if you're running a retail store, you don't stay away from the retail store and hope it posts a profit. You're in there all the time and tuning it and trying to get more money out of it. It's really, really important. So the routes people take are not really what we expect. You know, analytics data and usability research are going to be big pointers for you here. Just don't make assumptions. Oh, they go this way. They choose these things. How do you know? Oh, I don't, but it's my opinion, so that counts. Great. But the most common problem is the team not owning and obsessing over the experience. You're all mystery shoppers for your product. Immerse yourself in it. Tesco used to place their IT people in the departments that would be using their tools. So if you developed some really horrible app for the deli counter, you would get to go and work in the deli counter in a Tesco store every month to hear all your colleagues bitching about the person who put this horrible deli app together that wastes them hours every day trying to serve customers. Nothing sharpens the mind better than that, improving a product. Put you at the coalface and see how you like it. And a charity I worked with wasted nearly £500,000 on a pathway that they never visited. They didn't look at their landing pages on tablet or mobile, yet that was most of the visitors. These guys threw away £500,000 of donated money. It was really quite depressing, so don't do it. Great user experiences happen beyond the screen. They happen in the gaps that you don't even know exist there. So all this sort of stuff. Order your own products. Call the phone number. Do they have really horrible on-hold music? Do you know? What happens if you order 12 pairs of shoes and send 11 of them back? What happens? Do you get it credited? Don't know. Have you called the number on your website recently? Do they tell you to visit the website when you call the website number? Please visit www.blad.com. I just came from there. You don't know this stuff unless you actually try and experience it. You know, so wear the magical slippers of customer experience, and it will take you interesting places. Seriously. You may think that all you need to do is look at the data in your A/B testing tool, but there are some very good technical reasons why there are problems there. I have had immense problems that you can read about. Pet Blacha as well, from Conversion XL's blog, has had big problems with Optimizely's tracking. Right, a great deal of us don't look in Optimizely or VWO or anywhere else anymore. We do all our analysis in Google Analytics, right? So as Daniel mentioned earlier on, storing a custom dimension, you store a custom dimension in Google Analytics. You say, hey, this person saw A and this person saw B. So now you can go to Google Analytics and say, tell me all about the behavior or the kind of interesting data I've got in Google Analytics. Your A/B testing software is a tiny view onto your entire data set. So take the A and the B bit and push that into analytics, and you suddenly got a richer world of insight and data. But if your tests ever go wrong, they're broken, you don't get the right results, they don't make sense, or you want to figure out which different device categories got influenced by the test, then you must integrate with analytics. And this is a common problem. Most people do it all through the A/B testing package and assume it works. Please don't do it. Use Google Analytics or any other analytics package has integrations for the common A/B testing solutions. And the most important thing here is don't believe the lie of averages. You know, on average, A did 20% better than B. What for? New users, existing users, high-value ones, people who joined a month ago, people who joined 6 months ago? Do you know? Averages lie. Stop looking at averages and start decomposing them into the things that drive the averages that you see, and then you're beginning to get closer to the truth here. And you think you're tracking people here, but this whole problem, been talking about of actually tracking people. Oh, I got through the mobile site and then it was, oh God, all this stuff to fill out. I'll do it later at home, right? And then you've got someone completing the purchase on desktop. Unless you have some way of identifying this as a user across these, you've just got an attribution problem. This is an attribution problem that's kicking around, and you need to try and solve it. So what everyone's talked about today is, and there's a really important thing, is to provide them with an incentive. You know, if you can customize the experience, make it better for me, give me some free stuff, give me some stuff I otherwise wouldn't have had, it's a contract. You're asking them to do some stuff, we'll give them something in exchange. But the important thing is keeping people logged in. How many times have I actually logged into Amazon in the last month? Once, when I wanted to check my order history. All the rest of the time, I was always logged in. Okay, I'm always logged in my Google services unless I change around machines. So I can be pretty much permanently logged in for a long period of time on a machine. Use social logins, but most importantly, you know, follow users. Don't just follow devices or site experiences or apps. Follow users. And getting that data into universal analytics is paramount. So, another one, context. It's come up a few times today. But context for me is the future of mobile, this kind of information. The more data we get from phones, the more sensors that we add to phones, the richer the amount of information is that we can pull into our analytics. We can start to predict people's behavior. But it's also very important that you understand the time and space thing. This is an example for an airline. The kind of stuff you want to do in your app 2 days before the flight is not the same stuff that you want to do when you're running for the gate, okay? And you've got to be able to reflect that. People's situations change hugely. So your context, the tasks and goals that you want to try and accomplish, these change. But there's a lot of other information as well. And the more that you have of this stuff, do you know what data rate have they got? Are they on Wi-Fi or 3G or 4G? You know, what urgency level have they got? Are they trying to catch a train? Are they researching at home the night before? When are they traveling? You know, but this is all about the tasks and goals that people have and understanding the context in which they're trying to accomplish those tasks and goals. A good friend of mine, Simo, has also created this thing called the Weather API. So you can now store in Google Analytics what the weather was like when they were looking at your site. And you think, oh, how's that going to make a difference? Well, it makes a huge difference if you're selling holidays or outdoor clothing, you know, or marquees. I mean, the weather is going to have a big impact. So you can store this contextual data here. The more that you have of this stuff from user research and analytics data and any insight you can get, the better you'll get at actually designing A/B tests, and the better you'll get at designing products generally. But where's a good way to find out some of this stuff? Well, of course, you've got the data side, but what about the qualitative side, going and asking people stuff? I'm a big fan of get out of the office guerrilla testing. There are people with their computers near here. There's a bar near here, and there'll be people in your target audience in that bar who you can give beer to. You can bribe them with beer to test your product. It's really cheap. Price of a beer. Oh, it's not very much. So for beer or coffee, you get in exchange some feedback in your prototype. But what happens if I really want to understand how people are using my product in a multi-channel, multi-device scenario. You know, couldn't I just go and live in their house, right, and kind of stalk them for a couple of weeks? Well, the next best thing is a diary study. Imagine if they wrote some diary entries explaining what they were doing. Oh, and I got this out and I did this on my phone and then I did this on my tablet. If you're able to follow them through time and space and see how they really used the product, you get all this rich information. And it is. You can run a multi-channel diary study, and here's an example of a guy showing you, and he's showing you what speakers he's using in his bedroom and how he's playing his music. You get much richer information here, and this is complementary to your analytics data. It's fantastic. But I'm getting to hear things that I wouldn't otherwise have guessed about these users. So multi-channel diary studies on this URL. Check it out. Very, very interesting way of doing it. Big, big problem, this one. Big, massive, massive problem. Stop looking at A/B testing porn, okay? Okay? They might have done it on their site, but it doesn't necessarily work on yours. And this quote from Pep is really, really good, because your competitors may not know what they're doing either. They may have run a bad test, or they may have run a test a year ago on their website. You're only hearing about it now, so you're copying what they did last year. You know, if I was talking about A/B tests, I always kind of tried to play with the details or use old stuff so that if people copied me, it would harm their business. That's what you're doing, okay? It's a great way of harming competitors. Oh, it was a great test. We ran it. It was amazing. Oh, it didn't work at all. So anyway, less said about that, the better. But your customers are not the same as theirs. Okay? Your site is not the same. Your advertising mix is not the same. Your UX is not the same. So how you expect this stuff to work? It's a bit like, you know, when you see a microwave meal and you see a picture on the front, okay? They're not saying that that's how it's going to look. It's a serving suggestion, okay? So take it with a pinch of salt, please. Be informed by this stuff. Get good ideas that you can look for evidence for in your own user base that it's worth testing. But this is a big problem. Stop looking at other stuff and trying to copy it, because actually it's about your customers and your products to find out your tests that you need to run. Massive problem in A/B testing is people think they have a hypothesis. What is a hypothesis? It's an informed guess. I think that if I make the user experience better on this site or the navigation better, then good things will happen and I'll get a promotion. Yay! But this is the kind of stuff that people normally have as input to their A/B tests. Yeah, we think we should try orange buttons. That was cool. I saw orange buttons on a website. So there's all these stupid things, an article the CEO read or something. Oh, yeah, we've got to go and do this. But the problem is you need these inputs. Sorry. These inputs. This is the kind of stuff you need to look at before you design an A/B test. It should not be a knee-jerk reaction. Okay? And this sentence here, I say to people, if you want me to run an A/B test, then your problem must fit in here. If it doesn't, then go away in short, jerky movements until it does. Okay? So because we observed data, we saw something bad, or customers gave us feedback, or we saw a drop in sales, we believe that by doing this thing here for these people, it will make a good outcome happen. And we'll know what that is when we're able to measure it and confirm via qualitative customer feedback that it's actually happened. But let's take an example from the other week that I had, where I had a laugh making them fit it in. So I said, right, okay, because our CEO had an idea that nobody else agreed with but forced through anyway, we believe that by putting orange buttons on our homepage, we'll make people feel funkier, right? More, I've heard funkier, more on brand. They will feel more on brand. I said, could you explain how you feel more on brand? Okay? And when they got to this bit, they were already starting to crack up at this point, right? But see, when they got to this bit, we'll know this when, how are you going to measure funkiness or on-brandness? It's an impossible situation. So please use that sentence, print this out, and say to people, if your A/B test does not fit this statement, or if it fits really, really badly, then you need to think your A/B test. And this is a good defense mechanism against people asking you to do dumb A/B tests. Number 9, people say, oh, you just start testing. Put a bit of JavaScript on your site, and not to 60. Straight off, we're off. Where are we going to test? Anywhere, let's just start. It's not about that. You need your preparation work here. Before I would even start testing with a client, I would go through all of these checks. Second one, getting the developers on board and spending a lot of time with them and working with them, giving them all the tools they need. May not seem important, but it's actually a critical success factor. Deciding what goals and metrics you're going to use. So how are you going to measure A/B tests? What people do is they run a test, and if it fails, they'll look for another goal that proves that it actually won. That's cheating, okay? It's not good. Decide before you start the test what the metric is, not afterwards when it didn't quite go your way. Not good. So here are the kind of cycles that I go through. So this is the overarching discovery cycle, a continual effort to find product defects, dropouts, user experience problems. Now, if you don't think you've got them, if you do a QA test on your site with the top devices, okay, and browsers, and if you do a usability test on the top areas in your site or the key conversion points, you will have enough to keep you in work for a few months. I can guarantee it. Nobody will come out of that exercise clean without problems. But you need this discovery phase as an overarching thing to be finding this stuff, prioritizing it. What's the point in designing an A/B test if it takes 3 months? What about a tiny small A/B test that could get you a bigger lift faster? So the secret sauce of optimization in A/B testing is prioritizing where you test, or where the biggest footfall is, where you can have the biggest impact on people's behavior. So it's not just about randomly testing everywhere, it's about picking your test targets. Very important. And the test cycle itself, unless you've got a decent methodology for getting a wireframe built and into an A/B test and then a process for analyzing it, and it's not tough to set this stuff up. You just need a little bit of a procedural shell around it, you know. It's a little bit of methodology, but it's really, really important. Don't just go off and test, you know. Even if you're a very small company, you'll have a lightweight version of one of these. You need to be doing QA to check stuff, to check that the A/B test isn't actually broken. So very important. So here's QA. And this kind of rather fuzzy JPEG I put in the back here is actually a picture of a rack at Keynote Device Anywhere. And these are all mobile phones actually connected to circuit boards. So right now, if I wanted to, I could go and rent an iPhone sitting in San Jose in California, and I could visit the US App Store. I could install an app on the phone. I could see all this in real time as if I had the phone in front of me. So it's possible to rent by the hour every mobile device and tablet known to man, Droid or iOS, in the world, in any country. So if I want to test out something in the Brazilian App Store, I can rent an iPhone in Brazil and do it there. Fantastic. So for desktop browsers, you need one of these tools. Get your developers to look at them. And for mobile and tablet, AppThwack and Device Anywhere. AppThwack is a cheaper, much cheaper, but pretty good service. Device Anywhere is really the leader. And if you want to know why this stuff is important and why it could hose your entire A/B testing program, there's a really long article where I drone on about it endlessly. Enjoy if you're having sleepless nights. But this stuff is critical. Over 40% of the tests I've built in the last 2 years, and I work with some really good developers and people, over 40% of the tests, if I'd let them go live without this testing, they would have been broken. Now that means that I'm flipping a coin with the business strategy here, and that's a mistake. So do your QA testing. This is what Device Anywhere looks like. It's a real iPhone. I have control. But this is the biggest one. This is the killer. This is the one that almost every company makes. I interviewed 35 people for a job at the Telegraph recently. They wanted to hire a guy to do A/B testing and optimization work on their site. And I asked this question about confidence values and stuff to all the people who had sent their CVs in. And only 1 out of the 35 actually gave me a half-decent answer. It wasn't very good, but it was better than everybody else's. And most of them called it wrong. Most of them said, oh, I start my A/B test, and as soon as it hits 95% confidence, I stop it. Duh, not a good idea. Why? Because the 95% thing, you can hit very early in a test, okay? 95% confidence isn't a magical thing that says your test is ready. Don't use it as a rule to stop your test. And it also does not tell you you've collected enough of a sample. I got a 95% confident test after running 18 minutes. And the guys asked me, he said, oh, that's great. That means we can run a test every hour if we want to. These were guys who had a weekly sales cycle. Oh, it's all right. We won't test a whole week. We'll just test 1 hour of one day. And that will tell us everything about the whole week. No. The 95% thing is like the cherry on the cake. Okay, it's the last thing that you look at when you're doing an A/B test. And this is the problem. If you just let it, if you stop to test when it said it was significant, you're saying, oh, these are the two winners here. Great, you bet your bank on it. You've said the fluffy kitten worked on the website. We're going gangbusters on fluffy kittens. We're having fluffy kittens everywhere. We're going to have fluffy kittens on the homepage. We're going to have fluffy. And the problem is, it wasn't the fluffy kitten, right? The fluffy kitten died, right? Because you just didn't leave it to run long enough. It's crazy. So this is a mistake that most companies make and most CRO people make. It's really crazy. Stop doing it. Almost every test, even if you test your homepage, your current homepage, against an identical copy of your homepage, nearly 80% of tests will say that one is beating the other. How can that be true? It's the same thing, okay? So if it's doing that with the same thing, it's going to do that falsely if you test something new, okay? It's stats. It's really important. 3 articles here for you to read that explain it in much more mind-numbing detail. But another part of this is about representativeness. You're putting this little teaspoon into a river and trying to tell a story about the river for a whole year from a tiny sample. And the problem is around cycles. You've got these daily cycles. You may have a yearly cycle, an annual one, and you may have kind of monthly or seasonal ones going on underneath. It's a bit like an ocean. You see all these little waves in the top, but actually there are deeper swells underneath. And an insurance company I work with, they got me to look at their data. I said, can't understand this. I said, so what did you do? Well, we started the test and we finished it 2 weeks later, and here's the data. And I said, tell me a question. What's the average purchase cycle for people for this life insurance product? And they said, oh, it's 12 weeks. Oh, that's really great. That's dead useful, right? So what we're doing is we're running an A/B test on hypochondriacs that think they're going to die really soon. Okay, thank you, guys. That was really helpful. So you need to be aware of these cycles in your site, then you should certainly always test the minimum of 2 business cycles. If you're a payday loan company, your A/B tests are going to run 2 months minimum. If you're an e-commerce company, it's going to be 2 weeks minimum. Okay? So these are the rules. I'm not going to run through all these. These are rules that have taken me 5 or 6 years to work out. And this is the baseline that I use. This is the best way I can explain to people. You need 2 business cycles minimum. You need as much of a purchase cycle or 1 whole purchase cycle. You need at least 250 conversions, if not more, if the stuff is very similar. And you need to know what marketing is up to. You know, I find out, oh, my A/B test is a bit funny. Oh, yeah, it might be the TV advertising we started yesterday. Did we not tell you? No. So I had this stuff all the time. I go and ask them. I don't rely on them telling me. I go and sort of put hot needles in them and force them to tell me what's happening. But the main thing is, don't stop the test when you want to. Set your test runtime before you start. We're going to run it for 4 weeks, and then that's it. When it's finished, we stop, okay? That's all you do. Don't keep running it longer. Oh, it might turn up. It might turn round my way. It never has. I used to do that all the time. I thought, oh, if I just leave it a little bit longer, it'll win. No, never happens. It's really sad. The only reason to run longer is if suddenly your traffic disappeared and you haven't collected enough conversion data. So, and a lot of people expect that if the test result says they're going to get 25% lift, that's what will go into the bank account. But the A/B testing software is a range, right? If A said 3% conversion and 4 was 4%, but actually it's got this plus minus thing in it here, right? So it's actually 3, but it could be a bit higher or a bit lower. So you need to give a range when you're quoting tests. Don't say we're going to get £5 million a month and you only get 1 million. Everybody will treat you like the boy who cried wolf. You're an idiot. You promised us 5 million and we've got 1 million. We're disappointed. How could you be disappointed with £1 million? And people think segmentation will solve everything, but it really doesn't. One of the important things that you have to bear in mind, though, is if you're trying to work out what one device class did, or one group of people, or one particular targeted A/B test, if you've only got a small proportion of mobile visitors, you collected all these people on desktop and tablet converting, this is not a very big sample, right? You might have collected a lot of people who went through the A and B, but in terms of these 3 individual device experiences, you've got a very small sample. So keep an eye on that. It's pretty important. And who cares if it's a phone? Well, I do. Reducing CPA is a big thing of mine, right? Okay, try and find deficiencies there. So if you put phone numbers in your website, get call tracking. It'll get your PPC costs down because you'll know what your mixture of phone calls are. If you take any business or any conversions over the phone, get call tracking. And if you can't afford a call tracking solution, whenever anyone taps on this phone number, send this data to Google Analytics. Call it tap to call. Okay, and you throw an event or a page view, and that way later, I can see how many phone calls did I get from each individual keyword, right? What was my ROI on the mixture of phone and online transactions? Very important. So there's the kind of summary of the stuff in there. But let me just finishing up. Biggest myth of all is that A/B testing turns us all into data scientists. Not for me. In fact, it's been a really interesting exercise. All of you out there, or a lot of you, are just guessing with products. Oh, I think we should go with that. I prefer this design. I think the blue one will work best. It's a guess, okay? And it took me a long time to come to this realization, but we're all kind of winging it. We're trying to give the impression, oh yeah, absolutely. I've had 20 years of experience in marketing. I know exactly what to do. I know the brand and our customers. All this BS that I've heard, there doesn't have any data or any facts behind it. It's just assumptions, cherished notions, ego, and opinion. It has no place in this kind of stuff. And this is what you have to do. If you're going to solve this problem of bad A/B testing and bad product design, you need to admit you have a problem and then take a visit to Guessaholics Anonymous. That's the first step on the program. And this is where I thought I was in 2004. Very cocky. I know all this stuff. I'm great. I know testing and things like that. That was the reality. I knew nothing. I did not know where the boundary of my knowledge actually was. And that's me now. And I call all this sort of stuff exploring this Rumsfeldian space. To really innovate with A/B testing, you need to go to places and you need to try stuff out. Amazon encourages people to fail because they're going to find out stuff that's bad, stuff that they can avoid doing later on. It's a competitive advantage. And if you don't explore this space and your competitors are trying stuff out and failing, but also learning, the more they test and learn, the better they're going to get than you. And you've got an innovation problem. So it's not just about the tools. It's about all these other things, the culture of the team, the toolkits, the qualitative and quantitative insight that drives the kind of tests you're going to run and how you're going to analyze them. But here's the biggest thing. You don't want your company to be a dodo, do you? Right? You don't want to be an evolutionary dead end. Like it was mentioned earlier on, you don't want to be one of those X brand names. So how does DNA solve this problem? Well, interestingly enough, variation, all these different species, trying out different things, a lot of which are failures, right? But massive variation. You've got to scale your tests up, do as many tests as possible. eBay were said to be, oh, we've only done X 100 tests this year. It's not enough. You know, we need to do 10 times that much. I've had these kind of conversations. The more scale that they're getting out of these things, the more tests they're running, the more failure they have, but the more useful things they learn, right? So doing 1 or 2 tests a month, you know, it's not enough if you're a big company. You need to move faster. But here's the other thing, heritability of good ideas, right? How many times have you seen your company do stupid things again and again, right? A/B testing allows you to say, don't do that again. I was really stupid, didn't work, okay? So it's about variation, heritability of good ideas. And this is what Darwin talked about. It wasn't really survival of the fittest. It was about these 3 things. And the best bit, and this is great for any marketing people here, is selection was based on death, right? So imagine if every campaign that you came out with resulted in your death, right? You know, oh, it didn't work, Bob. time to get down to the guillotine, right? If only, I wish. I hope it was useful. Remember, growth isn't a strategy, it's a result of the steps that you take. Thank you very much for your time today.